But yeah, we love our libraries. We
Lovely.
go to them. We use them a lot. The government is being a bunch of dicks and trying to defund our libraries, which is, quite frankly, very uncool in a list of incredibly uncool things that they are doing lately. But CJ, you're very passionate about this. Tell us about it.
Uh, libraries, they've never caught a break since Alexandria burned down. You know what I'm, you know?
That was a deep cut.
Is he
They can't
wrong?
catch a break.
Is he
Sorry,
wrong?
my friend told me that I had to sneak that in. Um, they're always trying to defund libraries. You know that it's very interesting societal thing. So there's no way that I can like talk about this without getting very deep into a bunch of other topics. Um,
By all means. We do not believe in the straight and narrow here. We always take a winding
yeah.
path wherever we're going.
So I think um, one of the biggest reasons that people talk about why this is bad and everything is because it's one of the few places that exist left where people can kind of just exist for free. Everything costs a lot of money,
Hmm.
and there's very few places where you can just exist nowadays and things are fine. If you go to like the park, you can't exist in a park after midnight, at least
Theo
in a lot of
agrees.
places. Yeah, he agrees. He's really freaking out.
That bird is very passionate about libraries.
He's most, well, is he not technically the model for our library pet
He is a
bird?
model. He is for
is.
burp, yeah.
He
He is he
models.
is he is draft burb, and thus he is very passionate about libraries because he'll have no home if they get rid of him.
So
I'm gonna
this is
wait.
a little bit more of a conspiracy theory, if you will. And I don't want to derail your thoughts, CJ, but I'm
You're
actually
so fine.
curious. I am curious if it aligns with this. Do you believe that that the specifically this government and most other governments are keen to eliminate libraries because libraries are a source of knowledge for people who would probably not be able to afford to find knowledge in any other way, shape, or form. And as we know, knowledge is powerful, knowledge is dangerous, especially when it's
Yeah.
a segment of people that, once they are educated, may no longer align with said government's beliefs.
Yeah, we could go down this semi conspiracy for a little bit. So it's no secret that it's very easy to control the kind of information that you can see online, on social media, everywhere. Um, because the people that control how all of that works can do whatever they want to make any kind of algorithm to show whatever the heck that they want to see. It's very easy to like sort through the data and being a software developer on this place, I can see that recommendations. But I see like that it's possible for us to put whatever the heck that we want on there for, and anybody can do that who has control over something like I don't know Google or whatever search engine they use in other countries. I have no idea.
I think they use Google in a lot of them.
Yeah,
I
most of
think
them
there I
probably
Okay.
at
think
this
I
point.
think a lot of the countries that are kind of restrictive though have their own search engines that are programmed to show only
Yeah.
certain things.
Yeah,
Like
like
I think
Yeah.
Rush.
China doesn't use Google.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was they almost did, but then they Google backed out of it. But yeah, I know Russia, China, and like North Korea have their own specific
That's sort of what I
ones.
was getting at. I didn't want to name names because I didn't know exactly how any of that worked.
I mean, it's pretty
Um,
common knowledge. It's fine.
right. So it becomes very like then you can't control physical stuff. Like I have a manual or a book or how to do something, and they can't like take that away from me unless they come specifically to my house and find it and pull it away from me. And that becomes a lot harder to do on a large scale. But blocking certain people's access to different parts of the internet is very easy to do,
Yeah.
mostly because that's just how all of the inner workings of the internet exist.
Right, but if you take away the library, which is kind of the hub of the physical media, then you've done basically the same thing as restricting internet searches and all that stuff. Like that's what you're getting at.
Also, I think a very important part of the conversation in general is that by cutting the access to one of the last third spaces that we have in like the country, but in the honestly the Western world in general, you are contributing to isolating the people even more. And if we're talking about politics, the power is in the numbers. And if you like are forcing people to not hang around other people that would have the same ideals, you feel less inclined to um, say your opinion and state why you disagree with the certain things that are put in place by the people in power because you believe that you are part of a minority. Whereas if you like share with your community, share your opinions, get to know them, all of that, you will realize that your thought is probably like more common than you believed, and that's what they are afraid of it. And I can say that coming from a country that is currently basically at war right now because this whole thing that's happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, libraries just provide so many resources for, and like we're just talking about information, but honestly, like we're in a society now that has more or less outlawed homelessness. Like libraries give homeless people a place to go, something to do other than sit on the streets and be cold and wondering where their next meal is coming from. Like they give back to their neighborhoods in a way that no other business possibly can.
Well,
I
and I
actually
think, at least this is quick. My local library also provides a lot for children. I was very lucky that my daycare is literally on the same like plot of land as the library. And we would walk from the daycare center to the library for readings. We go do activities. You know, the free stuff that the library offers to parents who can't afford to take their kid on a
Hmm.
vacation. Or, the library would do food drives and all of these other really important things, that gave the whole community a place to organize and be, a community is also really understated, I think, in the current day and age. There's so much free computer access. My library has like a booth where you can go for a medical appointment. So if you don't have a private place at home, or you don't have access to a computer at home, you can go into this soundproof booth and have a medical appointment. It's which is really wonderful.
and like just like talking even more what other types of things libraries offer. I found out very recently, for example, that the public library that we have over here also offers a lot of help for developing your career, for preparing for job interviews, for even providing people that do not have access to preparations such as like how to do a job interview properly, or if you want to go into, I believe it's like the military retail services, like a lot of different like career paths that you require certain amounts like of knowledge. They do offer not only like the knowledge and the physical books there, but people that go there to sit down with you and you can kind of like ask questions, role play with them, job interviews and everything. And I, speaking also about children, what Rosetta was saying, another one of the things, because I was looking what my public library has this month, that I think it's really important to talk about is that they are offering safe spaces for children and teenagers to be themselves. One of the things that it offers that it almost make me cry because wow, like I would have needed when I was a teenager is like a send space for children from 13 to 18 to just go there and relax. And it's so important. Like the world is so stressful right now. And it's just, hey, we're gonna bring chips and we're gonna put a movie. You don't even have to watch it. If you just wanna come here, play video games, just relax, just be yourself. Be a child. Just come here. You can be safe with us. They're providing non-gendered like period parties for twins to just go and make like their little period. But like there's so many things that are community building that are so wholesome and wonderful that your libraries can provide for you, besides the amazing gift of knowledge and access to the internet and access to all of these things that a lot of people take for granted, and unfortunately not everyone has access at the comfort of their own homes.
Yeah, I was looking at the what my library has coming up for these, upcoming. They've got cooking classes. We've got crafts. We have GED help. There's a senior meeting, toddler outreach, right? There's exercise classes. We've got music classes, and there's a teen space, and there's a coding club, right? And I could go on and on and on. These are just spaces, classes that would be otherwise expensive. I think sometimes my library will charge like a very like small fee, maybe like $5 to $10 if there's a material cost like for a craft, but it's otherwise would be way more expensive to do by yourself or, taking a class at a specific
And
location for it.
speaking of dollar amounts, the funding for federal libraries is $304 million, which represents 0.01% of the federal budget. So that funds libraries throughout the entire country, but we're still trying to shut that down as the government has tried to do in 2017, 2018, 2019, and now again in 2025. CJ, I know you've had a lot of thoughts on this, so I want to take that winding road back to what you were talking about in the beginning and let you keep going on that.
Oh, I'm probably gonna not that I have things prepared, but I have
Oh
like
no,
a
we
little
don't prepare
bunch of
for
stuff
this.
that I had in my
Hell
head
yeah.
that I want to talk about. So I might go again with some of the stuff that you guys were
Go.
just saying.
We love the winding
what-
road.
as like I would say that I have grown up with a lot of privilege, and one of the things that like I think that hasn't ever really been explained to me is the importance of libraries. So I think like a lot of the things that I see is that a library is, and I see this a lot in media, and I think that people want you to think this, but aside from my own personal experience, I don't know how everybody else sees this. Uh, People want you to think that the only reason for a library to exist is for you to have access to a book, and because that's where they exist physically. You go there to the library, you get a book, you check out, you leave, whatever. With this device that I have in my pocket, I can theoretically get access to every single object and word in that library for free, pretty much, more or less. So then you start breaking down that thought, right? If a library is a place where you get a book, but I can get every book I ever want here, why would I go to the library? And then you kind of think like, okay, well, what if I don't have my phone? What if I don't have my thing? But I think at this point, many people have some form of a phone or a computer. Not everybody does, and I recognize that, but I think a large majority of the people that I'm thinking about do have phones and access to internet and other things. Even if you get like a crappy $100, that's a lot of money. But you know, and you can kind of like think, okay, well, some computers have free spaces where you can access a computer. You can get free internet there, and you can get free internet in a lot of other places. I think not
Less
just
so these
libraries.
days, but
Not
yeah.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
Less so these days.
Hmm.
Less so these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of places with free internet, but they aren't. I'm actually, this is obviously a side tangent. It seems like a lot of the places with free internet are now places that you won't necessarily stay as long. Like I was at the grocery store, free internet. I was at the I was at the doctor's
I
office,
love
free
that.
internet. That actually made sense. But like some of the
Yeah.
restaurants, like to get their free internet, you can get it, but you still have to like give them your email address and sign up for newsletters or something
Yeah.
like
Okay.
that.
So that's not necessarily
So
that free, but
Or
that's what I
or
was
you have
thinking
to
of.
buy
free.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or to
You
buy
need an
something and then you
account.
get internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. that makes more sense. So yeah, like I think that people want you to believe that the only point of going to the library is to rent a book, and then the the secondary part of that is why rent a book when you have your phone or whatever. But then you start like looking at all the services that the library provides, and it no longer becomes about defunding libraries. It now becomes about defunding everything, everything community related, because there's just everything runs through the library. Because unfortunately, that is one of the last and only third spaces left. So how do you exist as a community? You can't exist around businesses because you're soliciting. You can't exist. Is that the right one, or is it loitering? It doesn't matter. Anyway, both
Loitering.
of those.
Loitering.
Yes. What is soliciting? Which one is that?
Soliciting would be where I come to your house and try to sell you something.
Yeah, you can't do that either. But yeah, you can't loiter. You can't exist in a park after sundown in many places. At least that's most of the parks that I've been at.
Yeah, they have closing hours.
Right. They have closing hours, and there's not, and I don't know, it's ridiculous. So you're literally almost, it's almost like we're being forced to isolate, and whether that's happening um, in by like full intention or semi-intention doesn't really matter. That's happening, and as I'm like, there's very little to do outside. You can't do
That's
much.
That's a really interesting take because I think you're right. Because if you don't have a place where you can exist in a community and actually meet people who, these people you're probably going to meet kind of accidentally. You might start chatting with someone who's looking at the same books or sitting at the computer next to you. You'll meet people and find people with different ways of life and different opinions. Whereas on the internet, we typically exist within our own echo chambers. We
Yeah.
we
That's
cling
so
to the
true.
areas that we know, we cling to the people that we know. Because, if you feel strongly about one thing, you're going to exist in, that group, that subreddit, whatever you will. You're not going to then go and try to find, all right, well, I want to talk to people who believe the exact opposite. There are people out
Yeah.
there who do that, but typically you are not going to go out of your way to try and find someone who believes the exact opposite of you on certain topics just because. And those people that do are just prime. I'm going to generalize here. They're trolls.
Yeah.
They're just looking to pick a fight. They're not looking to learn. They're looking to pick a fight. Whereas at a library, you're probably going to learn because, quite frankly, most people are a lot more polite and willing to listen when you're face to face as opposed to posting on a message board.
Yeah, it's typically not socially acceptable to punch someone in the face because you don't agree with them.
Unless they're a
But
Nazi. You can punch Nazis in
different
the
story.
face. You heard it here.
Different
Yeah.
story.
It's
Like I
okay
said,
to punch
typically,
Nazis.
typically, it's not socially acceptable. But online, we do that all the time. We're like, you suck, or your opinion's wrong, because I'm in my echo chamber and you're in yours, and we just punch each other all the time. And it's so important that we have libraries where we can go and meet people. Librarians are wonderful people. Librarians go through so much schooling. I have a friend who's minoring in library studies, and she's getting a degree in like psychology first. Like she's going to do a lot of that stuff. Like librarians require so much training and skill. And those people are always so, so
I actually
wonderful.
looked into that one time, like, oh, it could be really easy to be a librarian. Like, no, you have to have like a master's in, and
Yes.
I do not remember the name of their
Wow.
discipline, so I'm not going to disrespect it, but like they are highly educated people.
Yes.
I'm like, oh
Yep.
damn, I don't want to be a librarian anymore. That's a lot of school.
This just made me realize that the entire media that I've been growing up with, and every cartoon or everything that I've ever watched, the person who runs the library or the library itself or anything is always depicted as bad. And I
Really?
never
That's
I just because the
yeah.
usually the protagonist is this young teen, or who's like, oh, I'm whatever, and the librarian is always the person who is like on their
But
back about every single thing
it's
ever.
the crotchety old lady who's just kind of going shh.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
was just thinking
But
of a
like,
book I read recently, like Memorial. It was called Memorials by Richard Chismer, and like there was this librarian who the only thing they talked about was how mean she seemed and all that. And I think if I remember correctly, she ended up being like a nice person, but you're right. Like the librarian is always the bad guy because they're shushing people or they're they're coming down on the cool guy or something like that. Like very rarely is the librarian, outside of I suppose the show The Librarians, is the librarian is never the hero.
Mhm. It's
Like the
quite
librarian
interesting.
is always the
Quite
boring
interesting.
person.
I can bring attention to one of my favorite characters then of a series of unfortunate events, which I just love that it's just a series of books also dedicated to children because they do take that idea of the librarian character and make her someone incredibly strong because she wants to bring knowledge to people. And it's part of the Auster Academy book in the first time that she appears on. And it's one of the few depictions of like a librarian, number one, as a person with depth in media, and number two, as someone that I feel like is more loyal to reality, in which, hey, I am a librarian because I love the fact that there is knowledge and there are stories within these places, and this is a beautiful place in which we can just sit down and find ourselves within this. And she works at this academy that is, it's called the Auster Academy, and I just very recently learned about austerity and all their fascist roots on it. And they give, in the moment like when the book starts, they give the library at least 30 minutes a day to be open. And even then, you see the Baudelaire children, the protagonists trying to just absorb as much information as they want over there. And the reason why the vice principal is doing all of that is because he wants to make sure that the children don't get educated outside of his own curriculum. And I feel like that is a perfect
Mm.
metaphor of what is happening in real life right now. It has been happening since they burned the Library of Alexandria, but it is happening more than ever at this moment in time. And we're living in historical times for a lot of reasons. And one of them is like how we are re-bringing like our I don't know how to put it in English. I have the no the words in Spanish, but reading, banning books and defunding libraries and all of the things that the government is doing right now is kind of making liking books and reading and going to the library a metal thing and protesting by learning. And it's ironically like for then I'm very happy that it's having this ripple effect in that the younger and younger generations, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are trying to approach more like reading and trying to learn about all of these things and forcing their spaces when there's not, because it's something that is a human right that is being taken away of from us. And when I was growing up, there wasn't this sense of like, wow, yeah, we should all go to the library because it's so amazing, that I feel like the younger generations right now are starting to really like notice how important it is and push for it. And I feel like that it's also like a little bit of hope in all of the misery that is surrounding us nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to, on that note, depictions of good library or good-ish librarians, reading this book for my young adult class, and the library, a librarian that Miles Morales is talking to is, well, she's depicted as this crazy lady who just doesn't know, is very like confused in the sense that she doesn't like, the whole this whole scene is she tells him not to walk under a ladder because of superstitions, but she doesn't believe in superstitions, but you shouldn't anyways because somebody could fall on you. She has all this really interesting bits of knowledge, but it's disguised under this kind of kooky lens, but you're supposed to be endeared. And Miles
Mm.
eventually is like, okay, yeah, I think she was right. Like this makes sense, and he asks her for information and she doesn't totally have the answer. But she's kind of like, go find your own answer, right? And so, we get a teenager who's like, reading's boring. I don't want to read. Um, Going to the library for something other than books and knowledge in those different ways, and it's so important that we see good librarians depicted in
Yeah.
our media.
I feel like there's definitely books out there where library like I'm thinking there's the Hell's Library series and then I'm drawing a blank on the other one that I've read. they're out there, but you aren't typically going to find a librarian portrayed in that way. And it's unfortunate. And I think CJ is right. It's I don't know if it's intentional, but it is almost like a slander campaign against libraries.
Yeah.
Mhm. Because all my librarians have been so wonderful. I
Hmm.
mean, I was seeing my librarians since like, preschool. And there was a good period of time where I wasn't going to the library because my parents couldn't take me. And once I had my own car, I started going to the library more. They're like, oh my God, Rosetta, I haven't seen you in blah, blah, long. You've gotten so much bigger. How are you? And they just talked to me like we were old friends because we were. And librarians are such important people and they make such important places happen. And I'm so grateful for that.
One very important thing that people don't realize is that libraries have like statistics and they have reports that they do monthly. Most of them are done monthly of not only the books that are requested for them, but of the people that use their resources. And that is very strong data that they can use to build a case in needing more funding. So even if like, and there are libraries. I live in New York State, and the New York Public Library, I'm pretty sure, like has way more like resources that like other libraries that are maybe smaller. But there are libraries in which you can even rent musical instruments. You can rent film equipments. You can rent cameras. You can have meeting. I said that in the other podcast, you can have like meeting rooms. You can have what Rosetta would say, like somewhere that is private. And by using those resources or even requesting them, even if you just like rent a book that maybe you didn't get to read, all of those things really help. Using as many resources as you can that your library offers helps with them to provide actual valuable data, so that way they can build a strong case in why funding them is so important. So if there is one thing that you're taking, that you can take like away from this podcast, is use the resources. And this is actually in the words of one of our team members named Crystal, who has extensive experience with libraries, that get a card, check things out, use ILL, attend programming. All of those numbers really matter. And at the end of the day, we can all say that we love our libraries and everyone is so amazing and everything. But unless we take action and we support it, we use the resources, we go there, we volunteer with the friends of our libraries, we are not going to be able to show how much we care to the people that are trying to restrict us and isolate us.
And I do want to say something that we've talked a lot about being physically in libraries. You can also support your library digitally because like it's Libby, it's Overdrive, it's Hoopla. I think there's another one. Like with your library card, you can check out a ton of things like books, magazines, graphic novels. Like that is another way to support your library as well and support your favorite authors, of course. So, I mean, it's not limited to just being in person. So, if you're going on vacation, bring your e-reader, download a bunch of books, and those are free. Those are better than carrying a big stack that you had to buy. Don't you don't need to pirate them. Just rent them, borrow them, and that is great as well. Just there are so many ways to support your library, and in an age where we like to just be very active online, we need to remember that it's the actions that are going to impact it. So whether it's your actions of going to your library, going there, engaging in the programs, just renting books, using computers, or checking out books online, all that adds up and all that shows, and they can report that, and we can use as justification to keep our libraries open.
Yeah, please do not pirate. Please. I know that it feels like so good to be like I'm stealing from the corporations, but use your library. Use your library. Those resources are free and probably better quality than whatever you're gonna pirate.
Yeah.
Please use your libraries.
I also, in the sense of like using online resources of libraries, there are a lot of libraries that are like from specific states that you do not require to be in state in order to
Mhm.
get a library card, and a lot of them are either like very cheap, like $25 a year or something, or free. One of them is Broward County Library, which I used a lot when I used to live in Florida. So, and if you use Libby Overdrive or anything like that, a lot of the things that you're going to find are very specific to that library. But there, since there are libraries that provide resources, and even libraries from another country, I believe like the biggest library in Australia has like free or very cheap, like like library cards as well. You can just start collecting all of those resources and try to see what you can use. If you don't find a specific book or a specific resources that you want, try to see maybe what's in the county next to you. A lot of the times, if you are within the same state, you still can't get library cards to all these different libraries. And again, using as many of these resources as you can not only makes it way easier for you because you have everything very accessible by people that are also taking very good care of these things and making sure that everything, even if you're renting equipment, for example, stuff like that, they're always making sure that everything is up to par and a very good quality because they know this is going to be used by multiple people. But also you're helping them kind of like keep this momentum on and keep the beauty of life. A lot of the reasons why they say that they want the fund public libraries is because it's wasted money and it's wasted time, and it is exactly the same reasons that they say when they want to go against anything that is related to the arts. And when C and I were talking about that this earlier in the podcast, it felt like how a dystopian that is controlled by an AI mind hive develops in like, if this is not efficient, we won't have it. And it strips humanity away from its meaning.
Also,
Like,
if your library system, I know mine does in my county, you can actually pull from other libraries in other counties in my system. I don't know if other library systems do that. Check if yours does.
I think they
If
all
you
do.
are at a, yeah, I think they all do. Ours has a specific name. But also if you are in I know New York State school, SUNY system, you can pull from any library in the SUNY system and have it brought to your library. See if your school does that. That's saved me and my friends so much time. It's like, oh, okay, hold on, it just has to come from the school next door. See if your library is willing to pull from other libraries to you. That is a huge service that they do.
Yeah.
Again, like Rosetta and B were saying, there's so many services. There's so many services other than just books. If you're like, oh, I've been to school already, I don't need to learn anything more. I have my phone. There's other services. There's other things. They don't just do that. That's why this is so important, because it goes from just not having access to books to not having access to community spaces and other services and other things that you don't have to spend money on.
Movies, music, magazines, all that good
Yes.
stuff. They've got it.
Be
I mean,
badass.
I mean,
Hang out with your friends at the library.
most of them have video games too, and like we
Hmm.
talked about in another episode, support your voice actors. They have everything you need, and even if you don't need it, and we've talked about a lot of what you need, other people might need it. So while maybe you are not a common library frequenter, when at least here in Michigan, it comes up fairly often on our taxes, or we got to vote for like a library millage. Think about all the other people. Think about the people like maybe you have a privileged life and you have access to internet, you have a laptop, and you have plenty of books. Other people don't. Other people can't afford to buy their kids books. Other people can't afford to take care of their kids. They need somewhere to go, and like my library has little play areas, or they actually have like toddler time. There are so many things that so many other people need that, make sure and don't want to say you, I want to say we all need to make sure that we are thinking about other people as well, not just how we can help us, but how we can help them and really help everyone at the same time.
Yeah, some of my best memories of going to the library were in the kids section. They had this, it was based off a TV show, but they had this computer game and you got to be bugs. And all my friends and I would gather around the one computer. And we'd all play the bug game, or we'd sit with the giant mouse stuffed animal and we'd all we'd go into the private room with the carpet with the letters, and we'd all sit on the letter with our name, or the letter that matched our name, and you would have fights over who got to sit on like, J or something. And it was, these were like things that really made my childhood. And it's so important for people who don't have access to the money to bring their kids to a daycare or those kinds of things to have access to those, the services and the memories and the good things that libraries bring, because they bring a ton of good things.
All right, CJ, any other wormholes you want to take, or wormholes, rabbit holes you want
Yeah,
to take us down?
actually,
Wormholes or space travel?
thank you for asking, actually, because I did have a bunch more. I did have a couple more things I wanted to say, and I
Go.
was going to say that they were rabbit holes. So something that we were talking about um, was about how one of like the biggest staples of American culture for some reason is pure efficiency, and from like a like I love that, right? I'm like ooh, I love playing games where you got to optimize everything and make things very very cool, and everything's so automated and so cool, and real life doesn't work like that. um you can optimize spending and funds and a couple other things here and there, but like you can't really optimize for time and getting things done, because once you do that, your body's like, well, I don't have enough time to do any of this. And your body kind of starts shutting down, and that's what burnout is. And one of the things that I found very interesting, that I don't remember where I heard this. It was for school. I don't remember what level, but it was this article about how humans live longer, or like how why humans live longer, something like that.
Hmm.
And the general gist of the study was figuring out where the oldest people in the world were and why they were able to become so old, basically. And the biggest factor that they were able to find, because they went through everything, they went through what they ate, they went through how like who they were with, they went through where they lived, what they bought, how big their house was, and all these other different factors. And the main thing that they had that they could connect everything down was a sense of community. That was the biggest thing that existed,
I was
was
wondering where
that
this
in
was
all of
going.
these different places was that the place that they lived, some small village maybe wherever, or a big place, but what they had was they had very 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 strong community in these different places. And I don't know, I thought that was very interesting that like here we're kind of like we have to make sure that everything's optimized and whatever, and the biggest way to optimize how much stuff that we get done is if everything is right here. I'm pointing to my computer setup, as if
Mhm.
everything is right here at the tips of your fingers. You get every possible thing you could ever want, but then you kind of like start getting away from everybody else, because it's easier to just do all the stuff from here and not having to go out or go and do these things. So I don't know. I thought that was very important. If you want to live longer, go to your library.
Yeah, that's my takeaway is that by supporting your local library, you will live longer.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at.
Okay, 100% in
Yeah.
fact. Write it down. All right,
Yeah, I'm
CJ,
sure there's a little bit more research, but
take you know what? I don't care. That's all the research that I needed. All right, you got one more rabbit hole for us?
I'm sure I could come up with something,
Oh, you
but
don't have to. I wasn't sure. I thought you said you had a
No.
couple. So, I think that's a good way to end it though. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Go to your
just
local library, live longer.
yes, that is it. So,
The fountain of youth is at your library.
honestly, it really is. Like, does anyone
I think it
not just
is.
feel younger and better after you go to the library? And
I can't talk.
this is
I
a
can't
side
talk, but
note.
yes, I do.
This is a side tangent, but there's just something, and I love digital books. There's just something more rewarding about picking up a physical book. Like the turning of the pages, whatever,
It feels so good.
it does.
There's nothing like a physical book. I get eye strain from trying to read on the computer. A physical book, I can feel it. I can smell it. You can put your fingers on those words and internalize them much better than going at
Yeah.
my screen all day. If I need not screen time, I go read my book. it's a perfect way to get off your computer
Hmm.
and off your phone.
Use your libraries. Use all their resources. They're there for you.
All right. So on that note, use your libraries, you'll live longer. That's the most important takeaway. Second most important takeaway is always support your library, whether it's through events, donations, tax millages, whatever have you. Please support your local libraries. Tell your local Congress people, senators, whoever the hell's voting on this shit to not defund our libraries because we love our libraries. And most importantly, publishers behaving badly. It's not you, it's them.
Stop! Stop!